So hello YouTube and welcome to another video. In this week's video I'm going to be doing a little bit of a story time where I go over my life at school and my experiences. FYI, it's not going to be as positive as you think it will be. So now we're going to fast forward past the second year of sixth form to my third year, where I decided for some reason to pick up doing media for AS and A2 and AS photography, of where I met a teacher who is probably the worst teacher I have ever had. I had heard rumours prior to the fact that, you know, this teacher wasn't very nice. However, you know, I always gave the benefit of the doubt because, you know, there were some people who said a science teacher and a maths teacher that I had when I was back in, like, I think year 10 or 11, that they weren't very nice, and they actually were the two nicest teachers I've ever had. So it really came down to perspective. So I was like, okay, I'll give this person a chance. Within 2 days, I realised this wasn't going to be a train ride. It was going to be a massacre. Pretty much within a week, half the class for AS Media had left because they knew that they weren't going to be able to do it. It wasn't a nice time. And I think the only reason I stayed there and carried on was because I was proving to myself that I could do it. So some of the things that happened, which I don't have any proof for, were the way she would talk about students. She gloated the fact that she made students cry and that she made them not want to be there. Once she came up to me and she was having a joke with a student next to me, and then they said something, I can't remember exactly what they said, but I remember her saying, well, you can't make a joke with Megan because she'll just cry and tell her mum. And I was like, all right, fair enough. It depends on the joke, but fair enough. I remember once when I asked her for help and she said at the very beginning, before I even started, that I could always ask her for help. And bearing in mind I was doing AS and A2, I was learning AS Media and then having to incorporate it into the A2. So I was doing both at the same time, therefore I was struggling. And I asked her a question in A2 Media because I didn't understand what I was doing. And she was like, oh, well, you should understand what you're doing. And that immediately just made me want to cry, of which the student next to me said, don't cry, because of what I said prior. If you cried, she'd take the piss out of you. So you couldn't cry, you couldn't show any emotion, you couldn't be upset. You had to be stone cold and basically act like you were fine. Then after that, like, for example, I did, there's two essay examples. So the first one is, I did an essay, it was about 6 pages long. It took me about 4 days to write. And she was going through them all and literally like going through them, and she just goes, oh Megan, your essay isn't here, I must have lost it, so you're gonna have to redo it and get it to me the next day. Bearing in mind it was 6 pages, handwritten, and I had no notes or anything because I literally, that's why it took 4 days, because I had to actually write it off the top of my head. I was shaking with a mixture of anger and just being so upset because of the fact that it was her intolerance that lost it, but then I was the one who apparently had to fix it. I went to powerlifting, got a PB, I remember that. It was 6 sets of like 125, 135 deadlift or something like that. And then I went outside to my mum and I was crying and I was explaining that, you know, she'd lost my essay and I was the one in the wrong somehow. So my mum then came in the following day and then she went straight up to the teacher and she was like, oh no, I found it now. Oh, I must have just misplaced it. So I was like, I felt like that was a bit fishy. The second example was when it was literally just an essay that I'd written. My handwriting is famously known for being very unneat and very hard to read, which I understand. But in front of the entire class, to basically say that your handwriting is so bad that I couldn't even read it, so I gave up, and it was so boring that I wanted to slit my wrists, is something that you should never say to a student or anybody in that fact. And the fact she said that in front of the entire class, everyone didn't laugh though, because at that point they all understood what they were in for, and they knew that teacher well enough to know that they didn't want that to happen to them. There's also just the common times of like, she'd be like, there's no wrong answer, I just want people to contribute. And I'd never contribute. Famously, throughout my entire year of school, my teachers, the one thing that they would say I didn't do was contribute and put my hand up on talking class, because I didn't like it. I'm anxious, I'm a very anxious person, I wouldn't contribute. So she would then pick on me in the class, and obviously if I am put on the spot, whether I know the answer or not, I go blank and I just say the first thing that comes to my head, and she would take the piss out of me for my answers. She would also famously, every time I recorded something for my trailers or whatever work I was doing, she would ask me to re-record it. She'd say, I don't like it, it's awful, I don't like it, I don't like that shot, I don't like this, I don't like that. Now the thing is it would be fine if it was once or twice, or if she would give some constructive criticism. She would literally say for any work that I did that it wasn't good enough and that I would have to redo the whole thing. And it got to a point where I think I was working for A2 Media, I was working with another student, and she started crying because literally everything we recorded, she went through the entire thing and was like, no, I hate it all. And bearing in mind, the stuff that we were recording required like interviews, and like you had to organise stuff to actually get people to be involved. And she basically went, no, redo it, like you could just redo it on the spot. So we just started like, you know, I wasn't crying, but she was crying, and I did my fair share of crying, by the way. Every single night, pretty much, in a week, I'd be crying because that's how bad it was. She started crying and I was like, no, it's fine, it's okay, we'll get something done. And I was lying. I had no idea what we were gonna do, but I felt like I needed to calm her down because we were at the end of our fucking tether at this point. So that's the kind of person, that set up the kind of person that this person was. The examples that I do have proof for was when she accused me of plagiarism. Out of everybody in the class, she said that I was the one person who evidently plagiarised my work. And I was like, okay, I haven't plagiarised, but fine. I've then got a couple of screenshots here. One side being my work, the other side being another student's work. There were at least 3 students in that class that had access to my portfolio profile thing that basically ripped off everything that I did. And not only did they not get picked up for plagiarism, but they also got a higher grade than me. The way she says obviously, the way she says it, obviously plagiarised. It's like, it wasn't plagiarised. It wasn't. And she got another member of her staff to actually check it, and they apparently agreed that it was. But let's be honest, if you're checking everyone for plagiarism, they should have picked up at least another 3 students, and they didn't. I think it's because of the fact that, I'm not making this an excuse, but when I did business, we were allowed to like copy and paste like, the way she says chunks as well, like she's finishing my sentence. I didn't copy and paste chunks. We were allowed to reference in business and copy and paste the link, which is what I did. And she was like, chunks. And I'm like, I didn't copy and paste chunks, but all right, fair enough if you want. Like little bits of it, and then as long as we put the link underneath, it was fine. I did quotes. Yeah, I understand. It'll affect everybody. Well, here's the thing, it didn't affect everybody because it only affected me. I was the one who had to sit there for 8 hours. I didn't drink, I didn't go to the toilet, I didn't eat. I sat there for 8 hours redoing my entire AS and A2 blog because she accused me of plagiarism. But no one else had to do it, only me. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like, was it actually plagiarism or was it just you punishing me because you didn't like me? Bearing in mind as well, the blogs that I did, and my mum can confer with this, I would sit and I would work on my blogs every weekend for hours and hours and hours and hours. And at the end, I think I only got like a C grade, and there were 2 other people in my class. I don't know what one person got, but I know that 2 other people in my class got like a B, like a high B grade for their blogs, even though they copied my work. So that's fun. So that's my story time. I think the whole message I can get from this is, you know, if I had more confidence and I had tried to stand up for myself, things might have been different. But I did reach out to other people to try and get help. My tutor, for example, not the same tutor from earlier. I had a different tutor by that point. I told him that I was struggling. I told him what the teacher was like, and he agreed with the fact of what I was saying with that teacher, but refused to do anything about it because basically, from what I can understand, he was scared of her. So that's my story. I think the only thing you can really get from this is, you know, I am still affected by it today. I still remember it now and again because it's one of those things that I just never let go of because, well, they didn't know how much it affected me. They don't care. They've moved on with their lives. They don't even probably remember me. Let's end on a positive note. This is Pippin. He's got cute little pawsies, don't you? Oh, you're such a good boy, aren't you? some puppy content. That'll make things better. So I hope you liked that video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up and leave in the comments any other videos you'd like me to make, and I shall see you later, YouTube. Bye!